Today on the show, I'm having a chat with Damon Sununtnasuk all about Monolaurin. Now, you might not have heard of Monolaurin. You might not know anything about it, which is great because that's what we're here to learn about. Where this show is all about education, information, and all things thyroid health. So what does Monolaurin have to do with thyroid health? Well, listen to learn more, but there's actually been a lot of research into Monolaurin and different aspects of thyroid health, including immune support, digestive support, hair growth, weight loss. And you'll find in the show notes, I've listed a whole lot of research that has been done. And so that's what we're chatting about on the show today. What is Monolaurin? How would you use it? Where is it derived from? But not only are we talking about that, we're also chat about our own personal responsibility, own need to take personal responsibility for our own health and do our own research. We talk a lot about quality of any supplements that we take and what to look for in a quality supplement. I learned things about how different supplements are made, what to look for, how to read the labels. All things that doesn't matter what supplements you're taking. And if you're listening to this, you probably are taking something. Well, I know I certainly take a range of different supplements. So it was really helpful. I've known the importance of taking quality supplements. I haven't always known what to look for. So I think you'll find that part of the conversation really interesting too. Damon is all about education and quality. And I think you'll really get that sense after you've had a listen to this all about Monolaurin. I hope you find it interesting. I hope you learn something new just enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, where we discuss different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, so that you can really thrive and not just survive. So join me, your host, Annabelle Bateman, and Let's Talk Thyroid. Well, welcome, Damon, to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. I've enjoyed we had a conversation a few weeks ago just to kind of chat about what we're going to chat about. And I really enjoyed talking to you. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation and getting some, interesting and different information out to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast listeners today. It'd be good.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. And we're all about education. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Well, and before we dive right in to, the heart of what we're going to talk about, which is Monolaurin. So maybe people haven't even heard of that, but so stay tuned. Tell us, Damon, a little bit about you and how did you get into this health space?
Great question. So the journey began in 2015, really, or in fact, a little bit prior. I've been living overseas for several years and experiencing the benefits of having the support of a social medical system around me. And I relocated back to the United States to San Francisco, where that wasn't the case. I was in between jobs, and because of that, I wasn't protected from a health perspective. And I was looking for natural alternatives to help support and bolster my own personal immune system. And two things became very apparent to me. One is that there's a lack of access to natural products, especially with those with an immune focus. And secondarily is the products on the market they fell short in many ways through a lack of research, through non-clean formulas, to just poor ingredients and combinations. And so I thought that there must be a better way. And I set out to sort of change the narrative for good in 2015 and launch this business, all with the purpose and the goal of serving the 58 million Americans that don't have access to health insurance or that feel that they are medically insecure, where they cannot purchase the right medications to support their immune health. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, wow. And I think you have such a different medical system to what we've got here in Australia. We definitely have that more socialized healthcare system. It's not perfect, but it's definitely not the same as in the States. So we're probably that little bit more protected, but maybe that makes us less taking personal responsibility for our own health, because we know we've got that backup. We can just go to the doctor or the hospital. And I wonder, it's an interesting idea.
That's a good insight, and I can empathize in a way. I've lived overseas, internationally, I should say, for many years in plenty of countries that have social healthcare systems, and I fully appreciated and enjoyed those systems. But you make a really good point. Even in the United States, where there's not that social system, it's very common for individuals to rush towards the prescription medicine side of addressing health challenges. And I think that, we could potentially benefit from taking a step back and identifying some of the underlying causes of what might be causing health challenges, and try to address the underlying cause rather than treat the symptoms. Healthcare is more than just taking a pill and hoping that something changes overnight. It's a journey that involves many aspects, which include diet and exercise and good sleep and supplementation potentially.
Yeah, well, you sound like you're just describing the life of someone with a thyroid condition, because, for so many of us, we're told, well, if we need medication, the medical system usually will say, here you go, here's your synthetic thyroid medication, just take that, just swallow a pill for the rest of your life, you'll be fine, go away, there's nothing else you can do, come back once a year if you're lucky for a retest. That's certainly pretty much what I was told 23 years ago when I was diagnosed. And I'm sort of sad to say it still seems to be the case, when we know now there's so many things that we can do and look. And so I think I'm really passionate about that, coming at it from a patient perspective. Definitely I talk a lot about taking responsibility for ourselves, digging for root causes. It's all very well
Lifestyle
to treat.
choices.
Yeah, it's all very well to kind of treat the thyroid symptoms, but unless you're addressing what might be triggering it in the first place, or even understanding how did you end up with an autoimmune thyroid condition, if that's your type of thyroid health problem, you're kind of just skimming on the surface, aren't you?
Right.
So do you come from a scientific research background, like how, just dive right into clean supplements and like that just sounds like why did you think, I want to support my health naturally, not quite sure what's out there is good enough, did you have a background that led you to solving the problem in that way?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a combination of training and sort of personal interest and enthusiasm. So the honest truth is that I spent over a decade in the technical industry, working for large tech companies around the world, mostly in a product and marketing capacity. But I think that a lot of the lessons that you learn working in that space can be extrapolated and transferred and applied to other industries, right? So the penchant for solid research and the product development phase can be mirrored almost from whether you're developing a piece of technology or if you're developing a dietary supplement. So applying a lot of the same themes and methodologies honestly transfer well. Now, I didn't go about it by myself. I work with an amazing team of industry professionals that include certified medical professionals, doctors, doctors of medicine, doctors of pharmacy, PhDs, and a wide range of other professionals that help me navigate this space, stay compliant, and be honest in this space, which has been really, really helpful. But it's a combination of the personal interest, applying great research and product techniques to a new industry with the support and help and shepherding of industry professionals.
Yeah, well, I'm sure big team effort. You mentioned compliance, and I think that's something we definitely talked about when we talked a few weeks ago. And maybe we just have a bit of that conversation now, because that will, as you listen, for those of you listening, as we get into some of the detail, you'll realize that we've got to have what we call a compliant conversation. And I know from like one of the things that I sell is essential oils. They're amazing for supporting lots of different parts of your body, but we have very strict rules that govern what we can say, the claims we can make, especially using disease names. For example, I can't talk about Hashimoto's and specific essential oils to treat that. And I wouldn't do that. I've got a legal background. I used to be a lawyer. So I'm fairly careful, I think, about what I say, and knowing, we don't want to break the rules. We don't want to, also don't really, it's a protection for everyone that's may buy a product, is to think that we're not just making claims because we want to sell a product. And I think that's why those rules are there. So maybe you can explain the compliance from your perspective, and then we can dig right into what we're being compliant about.
Absolutely. I love addressing this up front, because I don't want the remainder of this interview to seem like we are deliberately avoiding or dancing around certain subjects, or being coy about anything. But the truth is, we're just trying to be compliant. So as a representative of a company who wants to be compliant, who wants to play by the rules, who wants to be on the right side of the rules, there are a lot of things we can't say. So like you said, we can't talk about specific diseases or disease characteristics and a particular supplement. No supplement is meant to diagnose, treat, cure any disease. And we're allowed to make structure function claims, like it can support, or now the words are escaping me. It's at the end of the day on this side of the planet. But there are some things we can say to stay within the legal bounds, and there are a lot of things we cannot. So as a bit of a fair warning, I'll reference some really cool studies and some potential opportunities to go pursue some individual research. What I can make available is some links and websites to go pursue your own individual research. But what I can't do is be super explicit about particular studies, their results, or even their titles. We invest heavily in staying compliant and with transparency and safety and quality. And we have two different departments that deal with the compliance components within our company. One, of course, is around things like labeling compliance and forming the dossiers that go to support our ingredients and our formulas. And the others are of course, focus on what we can say publicly in our literature, our website, our blog, things of that nature. And so even within those contexts, we're not allowed to even cite references that have a disease state in the title of the study, even if it's not our own study. So here in the United States is very, very strict. And I know it's the case in other parts of the world. And honestly, we're not trying to hide anything. We're just trying to be as compliant as possible.
Yeah. And look, and I understand that. And people, hopefully when I've talked, if you've listened to other podcasts and where we are talking about essential oils, for example, we'll often say, this, peppermint can help support your energy, or, it can make you feel peppy, or, but you're not saying, peppermint is going to increase your metabolism and your mitochondrial function. Like, I would never say that. So, but it can sound a bit like, oh, all essential oils are either energizing or calming. It's like, oh, this one's soothing and this one's calming and this one, and it's not because we've run out of things to say, or because they can't be used in lots of different ways. It's just, it's about not overstating, what can be said.
So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today, and a lot of the phrases I'll be using are very similar to what you're used to using on your own, which is around supporting and maintaining immune health.
Yeah.
That said, I wouldn't ask anyone to believe what I have to say anyway. I highly encourage all individuals to go out and do their own research, read the peer-reviewed academic studies out there, look for the placebo-controlled, multi-center, double-blinded tests, and make your own conclusions. Don't trust folks from the industry like myself, I highly encourage people to become educated at a personal level before making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's well, I guess without further ado, why don't we just dive right in?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Having said all of that,
All the disclaimers.
All the disclaimers for all the right reasons. So let's have a chat about monolaurin. I don't know if you're listening to this, you go like mono what, or what is that? So take us through from the 101. What is it? What is it?
Would love to. Thank you. Monolaurin is a dietary supplement which is synthesized from lauric acid. It was first synthesized in the 1960s and has since been implemented and used in various food processing and food industry and cosmetic applications. And it wasn't until maybe 30 years ago it really gained traction within the health supplement space. So let's see. So lauric acid is found in nature in a couple of places, in plant oils, in coconut oil and palm kernel oil. Lauric acid constitutes around 50% of the fatty acid content of coconut oil, around 48 to 49% of palm kernel oil. Curiously, it's also found in human breast milk. It's about 6.2% of the fatty acid content of human breast milk. And that is indeed where I believe it was first found in the 1960s. From how I understand it, some studies were being implemented to try to unpack why infants weren't habitually getting sick. And so they decided to analyze their food source, right? Uh-huh. And analyzing the composition and nutrient content of breast milk, lauric acid was one of those elements that was isolated. And fast forward to today, monolaurin, the dietary supplement version of lauric acid, has been gaining in popularity. According to Google search trends, it's up 300% in interest in the last 12 to 18 months, and probably for a good cause. Like I said, it's utilized in the food production space as a sort of natural alternative to using harsh chemicals, either for cleaning or for preservation, and also similar uses in the cosmetic industry for shelf stability, et cetera. Mm-hmm. In the United States, monolaurin is classified as a GRAS substance. So GRAS is an acronym which stands for generally recognized as safe. So the FDA says that within certain use cases, monolaurin can be used without fear of side effects or getting sick or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Can I take you back to the breast milk question? Do you know, does the body produce it? Like how, or was it, do you think it was, do you know that it was coming through in the breast milk because of what the mother was eating? Do you know that?
That's a great question. So we've done some research on this, and I'll make available after the podcast some links to go do this research on your own. There are a lot of factors that influence the composition of human breast milk, and specifically the level of which lauric acid presents. And there are so many factors. Your diet is one. The studies suggest that ingesting higher amounts of medium chain fatty acids like lauric acid can increase lauric acid levels within the breast milk, but also your geographical location, your ethnicity, your age, all play into the amount of lauric acid which is present in breast milk.
Mm. And so do we need lauric acid? Is it something that our body actually needs to function?
That's a good question. Need is a word that I don't know if I could respond to fully. Mm-hmm. I know that lauric acid is found in many diets around the world. So Asian and Southeast Asian diets that have a high concentration of milk fats, coconut milk fats, mm-hmm. Benefit from higher levels of lauric acid and monolaurin in the body. Like I mentioned, half of all the fatty acid content of coconut milk, or coconut oil, I should say, is lauric acid, but the degree of which is converted to monolaurin in the body is not fully known. So we know that you can increase lauric acid levels within the body by ingesting coconut flesh or coconut milk, but the conversion is not fully understood. So it is thought that dietary supplementation can help support that in a more meaningful way.
Okay, because it's more direct. You'd be taking it in directly and not relying on your body to convert it. Is that what you mean?
Correct. And some studies that we've actually done in-house suggest that to get this equivalent of, so we usually offer 600 milligram capsules as a standard serving size capsule. In order to get 6 capsules worth, so that's 2 capsules with each meal, you would need to consume almost a full cup of coconut oil, which may be inconvenient or unpleasant for many people.
That's a lot. That is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I was thinking before, I mean, coconut oil is something that I wouldn't say always cooked with, but cooked with for a long period of time. And, just in my health research over many years, seen that as a healthy fat option. And I think I might have mentioned last time, like I don't have a gallbladder. And I think actually that's not an uncommon thing for people with thyroid issues to end up with gallbladder issues. And so I had my gallbladder removed 15 years ago. And so my body can find it harder to process fats. And I remember reading years ago that if you don't have a gallbladder, coconut oil can be a better fat, like it's an easier fat, those medium chain fatty acids, easier for your body to process. And so, coconut oil has been part of my life for quite a long time. But is that something you've come across? The gallbladder thing, or the easier for your body to process compared to other, dietary fats?
That's not something that that I've directly come in contact with, but something that I should put on the researchers' to-do list for upcoming posts and upcoming research articles for sure.
Yeah. Well, that it's just sort of, I don't even know where it's sort of something that's sort of stuck in my brain for a long time. And, I think, it may be in part of that research of, saturated fats and what are good and what are not. And so maybe I've been at least getting some more lauric acid, if not monolaurin, over time. Indeed. Without even really being aware of it. So you talked at the beginning about, supporting our immune health. And for a lot of people with thyroid issues, it's an immune issue. We have autoimmune issues. And so we're wanting to generally be supporting that immune function, immune response, lowering inflammation, so that we don't have too much of a revved inflammatory response. And so all of that immune system support. So how can monolaurin fit into that broad immune support space?
Yeah, great question. So monolaurin is taken for a variety of reasons, most principally for supporting immune health and supporting digestive health. We're getting into that territory where we have to start speaking in a little bit more general terms, but monolaurin has been shown in several studies to help support and maintain overall immune health, which I know is important for anyone, but especially those maybe suffering from thyroid conditions. Digestive complications are something that a lot of people can relate with, and monolaurin has been shown in study after study to support good digestive health. Again, without getting into specifics, there are a number of articles that anyone can find if you do a very quick search for monolaurin in digestive health or monolaurin in immune health on nationally, federally recognized websites such as NCBI, PubMed. It's run by the National Institutes of Health in the United States. It's a document repository of third-party research studies. You'll find literally thousands of references to monolaurin in these.
I did a bit of a look, and it's like, oh, where do I start? Yeah,
it's fascinating. I mean, you can really get down the rabbit hole pretty quickly. But luckily, there are some websites out there that help summarize and bring together some of the more critical articles, and they'll call out specific highlights from the articles, verbatim article references, and of course attach the resources at the bottom.
Okay, because yeah, look, I think for most of my audience, we've had / have digestive issues. That's very, very common. It's almost, it just kind of tends to go hand in hand, really. And so there's lots of things that I talk about and have, talked to guests about on the show about supporting that digestive health and making sure, all our food is being processed properly and not leaking out where it's not meant to. And, maybe we're not eating food proteins that are stimulating, that are triggering unwanted responses. So yeah, gut health is something that we talk about a lot, and I'm very, passionate about. It's really critical to our thyroid health as well as our overall health and our brain health and our immune. I think there's something, you might even know this, the percentage, but a lot of our immune health comes in the gut, doesn't it?
That's right. No, I'm on the edge of my seat because I would love to just dive right into some of the research and start quoting some of these incredible study results. But given the limitations, there are a lot of things that individual listeners can go search for. There are many articles or studies on leaky gut and monolaurin. And more interestingly, there are several university studies that explored monolaurin and potential pathogens, bacteria, protozoa, et cetera, that may not be the top of mind for people that are just conscious of, is this morning's breakfast gonna trigger an episode with my digestive system, but more profound in developing countries where children can be victims of malnutrition if they drink improper water, if they eat underprepared food. So there's a lot of interesting science to unpack there as it relates to some of these more sinister sides of gut health. And again, those articles are readily available and ones that I can share or that I encourage people to go seek out.
One of the studies I came across, and I'm not sure if you can speak to this, so just say no if we can't go there, was one that looked at the absorption of T4, like synthetic T4, which is probably the world's most popular thyroid replacement medication.
That's right.
Thyroxine, oroxin, depends on the brand name, but basically it's synthetic T4 thyroid hormone, which is your inactive thyroid hormone, which then relies on your body, largely your gut and your liver and other parts of your body, to convert that into T3, which is your active thyroid hormone. And that's what actually helps all our cells to function and our body to work. And so, and I know that there are other forms of thyroid medication around, and it's still the most popular one. And this study was suggesting that a problem with sometimes with that, maybe that conversion or the absorption of the T4, is that when we swallow the pill, it goes into our gut. And if our gut isn't healthy, we're not actually absorbing the T4, which would then have a flow-on impact onto conversion and energy. And we're not really getting the best value out of our medication. But this study was talking about, when was it the lauric acid and helped the absorption of the T4 because it helps support the intestinal permeability.
Exactly.
Is that right? Have I read that right?
So you mentioned a couple names. I think the name that's used in the study is levothyroxine.
I think that's the US term. Yeah, but it's the same thing, isn't it? The synthetic T4.
Correct. That's right. So the study demonstrates that fatty acids like lauric acid and monolaurin can help improve absorption through intestinal permeability. You were mentioning something earlier, which is known as bioavailability, the ability for your body to absorb nutrients. And the study suggests that lauric acid could help increase the bioavailability of that T4 when administered orally. So it's not changing any thyroid function. It's not adding T4. It's just helping your body better take advantage of T4.
Yeah, which sort of I mean, even aside from the lauric acid, this kind of conversation makes you realize that if your gut health isn't good and you're taking medication, you might not be getting the best value out of any medication you're taking if it's relying on that absorption in the gut.
That's right. It's the same story for almost every dietary supplement. If it's not administered in the right format or the right dose, or with or without food, you can end up expelling the excess dietary supplement without fully taking advantage or absorbing it, utilizing it.
Yeah, which probably comes back to what you said right back at the very beginning, is when you came back to the States and you were looking for, natural supplementation, and you're looking at the ingredients. And I know I've heard some of this conversation with the essential oil company I'm with. They make some supplements too. So I've heard some of that discussion, and that if you're just taking lots of synthetics, then your body can't absorb them. You just got expensive wee, really, don't you? You're just sort of
that's right,
peeing it all out, waste, and so the quality of whatever you're taking, whether it's food, supplementation, really matters.
Couldn't agree more. You're exactly right.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting study. The other thing that I came across while I was looking into this was the connection between monolaurin and various pathogens. And I know, different pathogens can be common triggers for autoimmune thyroid issues. It's like part of creating a perfect storm, is the way I understand it. Is there's never just one thing. There's always this sort of combination of things. But different viruses, different things can be a trigger, and then can rear their ugly head at different points in time. And a very common one is Epstein-Barr virus. I think there you call it mono. I thought there's two monos here, monolaurin, mono. We just call it glandular fever in Australia. But yeah, it was interesting seeing that there was some connection to kind of dealing with those pathogens and the monolaurin. Is that, can we go there, or?
We'll dance
really?
lightly. Yeah. So you're right. There's a mononucleosis, or mono, as is known in the United States, and glandular fever, as is known in other areas, the English-speaking world. It's actually the most common disease caused by an Epstein-Barr virus, an EBV infection. Typically, adolescents suffer from this disease, which can last usually up to 6 weeks, characterized by extreme fatigue and swollen lymph nodes, et cetera. But it can come back, and it can be habitual, right? So I'm sure people have heard of chronic fatigue syndrome, and other things that stem off from Epstein-Barr virus complications. And I wish we could get into like the research between Epstein-Barr and monolaurin, but
go do that. Virus, go Google that. If you're listening to that and you're interested, go to PubMed and Google. Well, not Google. You can't Google on PubMed, but go research.
So Google Scholar is a very good research tool, and they can oftentimes cast a wider net than PubMed. So PubMed is specific to journals that have been indexed by the National Institutes of Health. Google Scholar goes further and wider than PubMed. So Google Scholar is a great tool. But what I was going to say is Epstein-Barr is actually an enveloped virus. So Epstein-Barr virus has a fatty lipid sheath that protects the DNA or the RNA of the virus, and encapsulated viruses are very common. Epstein-Barr virus, I believe, is actually part of the herpes family of viruses, of which there are dozens and dozens of them. They cause everything from cold sores to shingles to chronic fatigue, right? And again, like I can't recite study results on the podcast, but it's another opportunity to go searching, right? So the research behind encapsulate or enveloped viruses are fascinating, and ones that are absolutely worth further exploration.
So yeah, look, and I think this is what I find so fascinating about natural products, whether it's or something coming from like coconut, like this, or the palm kernel oil, or whether it's plant medicine, or all those sort of natural things. I just always find them really interesting. And you think, I think we're just coming back full circle to what what used to happen in the past. And then, and I'm definitely of the view that we don't have to be either or. We can be both. Like you can do Western medicine and Eastern medicine. You can do traditional and, you can do it all. We don't have to just have this division.
I completely agree. It's all about, it's a holistic approach to individual health and wellness. And every individual responds differently to supplementation and medication. And it's up to the individual to understand what works best for them and try to optimize for exactly that, for their own self. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, no one medicine or supplement is meant to cure or fix anything, especially in the immediate terms that we've been accustomed to expect. But it's a part of an overall health and wellness approach and plan that includes, sometimes supplementation, sometimes medications, but definitely good diet choices, good physical activity choices, good sleeping habits, etc.
So would it be helpful to actually include that coconut flesh, coconut milk, coconut cream, coconut oil generally as part of our diet? I know that's not the same as pulling out the monolaurin, but is that helpful?
Helpful is an interesting way of putting it. It's a little bit polarizing these days. For the longest time, coconut oil was sort of the hero of the natural products show. People couldn't get enough of the purported health benefits of coconut oil. But more recently, I've seen some arguments that challenge that because coconut oil is a saturated fat, and too much saturated fat is not healthy. And so I think, like anything, it's all about moderation, right? You can find studies, and I love seeing these charts where people talk about, oh, well, a glass of red wine can be very, very healthy for you, or a glass of red wine can be very detrimental to your health.
You can seem to find anything you want, really, can't you?
Precisely right. And so everything's on a spectrum. And I think it's up to the individual to choose the right volume and cadence that makes sense to them. I think that some studies, again, you can seek these out. These studies demonstrate that people who have a diet high in vegetable fats like coconut oil do benefit from some health improvements. There are some amazing studies that go beyond just regional impacts, but also with formula supplementation for infants. So there's a big difference between bovine-derived fats and plant-derived fats. So one would be milk that comes from a cow, and the other could be milk or plant fats that come from coconut sources, for example. And the studies go on to demonstrate that the plant-based fats are actually a lot healthier for the infant's digestive system than the animal-based fats. So there's some really cool studies out there that explore all these themes.
Yeah. I know one of the things that I'd sort of looked into for a while, and actually I was in my kitchen just before, and I thought, oh, I'll just bring this up. I mean, this will be an Australian brand, but it's MCT oil, and it has all these big, it's great for, what does this say? Power, cognitive performance, and optimized for ketones. And I've seen other ones for, this one's good for energy, and this one, so is that, obviously that's got the medium chain triglycerides pulled out of the, otherwise the coconut oil sets hard in,
that's right,
cold
weather.
So is
monolaurin
that right?
is a medium chain fatty acid. So it's we have a lot of people asking, could I take monolaurin as part of my keto diet? Could it help contribute to some of the the weight loss activities that I'm currently pursuing? And the good news is that monolaurin is great for all those things. It's keto friendly. It's vegan. There are studies that suggest that it can help, with some weight loss protocols. And
well, that's good news for some of us. Yeah,
that's right.
And so really, I think is what you're saying. So you've got so the monolaurins really come from the lauric acid. The lauric acid makes up about half of the coconut oil. And so you're not probably, from what you were saying, from a supplementation point of view, you're not getting the volume, because most of us aren't, well, I would hope, not going to consume a cup's worth of coconut oil in a day. I would hope not. That would just makes you feel a bit queasy, doesn't it? So when you extract, when you're extracting it, you just ultimately put it into a capsule and swallow it. Is that the idea from a supplementation point of view?
That's right. There's a few delivery mechanisms for monolaurin. So you're right. So the lauric acid is extracted from coconut oil. So again, it's about 50% of the fatty acid content of coconut oil. It is then bound with glycerol, which makes the glycerol monolaurate, which is the chemical name for monolaurin. And then you have a choice. You can either consume the powder as it is. There are some brands that sell loose monolaurin powder. The challenge with monolaurin powder is that it's extremely soapy and bitter. So lauric acid is like a soapy byproduct, and it coats the mouth. And even if you try to hide the monolaurin powder in applesauce or peanut butter, it's very difficult to get past that soapy, bitter flavor. So it's not a lot of people pursue the loose powder unless you're encapsulating your own capsules at home. Mm-hmm. The second option are these monolaurin pellets. It's a teardrop shaped BB size pellet, which takes the monolaurin powder and encapsulates it in a glycerol sheath. And what's attractive about the pellet is that it's very easy to get high doses of monolaurin. As I mentioned earlier in the call, monolaurin is generally recognized as safe by the FDA, and it doesn't have a defined upper limit in terms of how much you can consume. So looking at some brands or some websites, they suggest quite a bit of monolaurin, some upwards of 3 grams a day. And it's very easy to get that level of monolaurin if you take the pellets. The challenge with pellets are that it doesn't always pass through. Sometimes it passes through your digestive system undigested. You can find it in the toilet, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you stop breaking down whatever the coating is.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so you can't be sure that you're digesting the full allocations worth. And for some individuals, the glycerol pellet can be a bit of a digestive irritant. It can upset the digestive system or slow the absorption of other nutrients. So we don't make pellets because of those reasons. Mm-hmm. The third delivery mechanism for monolaurin is capsules. Mm-hmm. So capsules are pretty standard. They're easy. Yeah. They fit in those little capsule organizers, and it's very easy to understand like how much you're getting. And so the capsules can come in a variety of sizes: 300 milligrams, 600 milligrams, 800 milligrams. It all depends on the level of which the individual is looking to accomplish.
And is it something that can be taken alongside other supplements, or is there any sort of restrictions as to when you should or shouldn't take it?
Great question. There are no known interactions between monolaurin and other supplements. So some people take it as part of their daily routine, and they just in the morning they take all of their vitamins and they happen to include monolaurin with it. We hinted earlier at the concept of bioavailability, your body's ability to process certain nutrients. And because of that, many people choose to take monolaurin with food. Food helps sort of trigger the digestive process in your stomach and small and large intestine, where the product is broken down and absorbed. And so with food, you can increase the levels of bioavailability and decrease the chance of having an upset stomach because you take it on an empty stomach. Yeah. But people choose to take it at all times of day. There's no particular time or way or method that you may choose to take monolaurin. Many individuals, well, there are considerations for how you might introduce monolaurin into your supplement routine. There are 3 main approaches to integrating monolaurin as part of your dietary supplement routine. The first is if you're new to Monolaurin or any supplement really, it's recommended that you start low and slow.
Mhm.
Because everyone's body responds differently to dietary supplements, and what this methodology is trying to evade is a Herxheimer reaction. I'm not sure if
I don't know what that is. What's that?
So the Herxheimer reaction is also known as a die-off response. It traditionally happens if you take a medication like an antibiotic, and what happens if pathogens in your body die off very rapidly, they release these protein endotoxins into your body, which your immune system responds to in an inflammatory response type of way to try to clean up the viral or bacterial particles. And this response creates a reaction that's ironically similar to like a cold or a flu. So even though you may be eliminating one thing, you feel like you're actually getting sick on the other hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thought is that to avoid this process, it's best to introduce medications or even supplements in a low and slow way so that you avoid this avalanche of die-off.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's one consideration. The other two considerations for Monolaurin supplementation are like a maintenance phase. So people just take it for overall immune health every day, like they would vitamin C or vitamin D or zinc, just to help support their overall immunity. And some other individuals choose to take it under immune duress. So if your immune system is compromised or if you're feeling a little bit low, they choose to sort of dial up the Monolaurin, and that time to give their immune system a little bit extra support.
Yeah. And I guess a bit like you would if you weren't feeling well, you might up the vitamin C. That happens in our house. All right, come on, up the vitamin C, up the, so yeah, you've got that control to dial it up or down.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm just wondering most of us with thyroid issues, really probably any long-term chronic illness, we're pretty used to swallowing fistfuls of supplements. I think it's hard to avoid supplementation if you're wanting to, I think, this is my view, generally from a holistic support, then we need to be, supplementing in some way. So, you have done that research initially into, I suppose this is a general supplementation question. How do you know if you're getting a good quality supplement or not?
Great question. I think it's all around turning the bottle around and checking out what it says on the label. So I believe I used this phrase when I was introducing, why we got started back in 2015. And I said the word clean label. Clean label just means that, you're not using synthetic additives, excipients, or surfactants in the production of the product. So modern encapsulation and tablet pressing equipment is super high speed, very precise equipment. And in order to ensure a uniform fill within these capsules, you have to have, it's like a lubricant, which is called an excipient. And this excipient normally can be a synthetic additive like magnesium stearate or silica, something that's cost effective and highly useful in the production process. But it can have unwanted side effects, right? It can cause stomach irritation. It can potentially slow the absorption of the nutrient you're trying to achieve. And so, I encourage people to look for clean label alternatives, which may mean that instead of magnesium stearate or silica, it uses organic rice powder as the excipient, for example. The other thing to consider
so
is
if you're looking, like if you're reading a label and it says magnesium, what did you say? Magnesium what?
Stearate.
Stearate, you think, oh, not so clean. Silica, not so clean.
That's right. So for example, it will be underneath the supplement facts table and listed under other ingredients.
Oh, yes, I've seen that. Yep.
From our perspective, we only have two other ingredients. One is the vegetarian capsule. Yep. Our vegetarian capsules are made from either plant cellulose, which comes traditionally from pine bark, actually, or tapioca, which creates pollen. which is a really amazing substance that is vegan and has incredible oxygen protection qualities, etc. So those are the capsules that we use. Others may use animal gelatin capsules because they're very cost effective and they do the trick. But we want to be sensitive to those who may have dietary constraints that don't allow them to eat animal byproducts. Similarly, like, where is the source of your monolaurin coming from? Like I mentioned, in nature, it's principally found in two major sources. One is palm kernel oil, and the other is coconut oil. Palm kernel is a lot more industrialized, and it's a lot more economical to process, but it has some unwanted environmental impacts, right? It causes a lot of deforestation, the displacement of native animals, especially in countries like India and Indonesia. And so we choose to go with coconut because of the environmental responsibility behind that versus palm kernel oil. Some other things you might consider are like, where is your product made? Is it made domestically or is it made overseas? Is your product sent to a third-party laboratory for testing? We send all of our products to ISO 17025 certified laboratories to check for, is the fill amount correct? Like, is there any potential contamination, either from a heavy metal standpoint or a microbial standpoint? We do stability testing, et cetera. So like, it's a little bit of extra legwork for the consumer to sort of pick at these.
But once they know the brands, then you can trust them. That's right. So it's a bit of research to know, because otherwise, you are just buying expensive products that body's not using.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're really helpful tips, because I've often wondered, I know it is important. Like, I just sort of, as a general rule, don't buy supplements that you can buy in a supermarket or a pharmacy unless they're practitioner grade, like that. Then if they're naturopathic recommended, so I think I'm careful, but I haven't really known exactly what to look for. I just think, mass produced, probably not good, which is probably not very that's definitely not a scientific approach. I'm not, so that you're knowing, I suppose it's that education, isn't knowing how to read a label and what to look for. I wouldn't have known what to look for. So that's really helpful. That's right. Other things that you can pick up on as you get a little bit deeper into reading labels and understanding, brands, their commitment to quality is, are the manufacturing facilities GMP accredited and certified, either, by like legitimate certification agencies like UL or NSF. And if the company is, and they want to promote that, right? If it's not on the bottle or if it's not on the website, it probably means that they're not doing it, because it costs a lot of money to get those certifications. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, you're going to promote that. So just keep an eye out for those little things. Like, again, is it clean label? Think about the source. What are the other ingredients saying? Where is it made? Is it GMP certified? Is it third-party tested? These types of things will help you gain that confidence for a quality supplement. That's really helpful. And is there something, Damon, that I haven't asked you that you think that my audience would benefit from knowing? What a flattering question to ask at the end of the interview. Look, the thing is, as I mentioned before, we all have a vested interest in our own personal health, and you have to put your own personal health before anything else. And I hope that individuals found this chat helpful and interesting, and at a minimum insightful enough to go pursue your own research. Don't fall for what might be the latest trend, or what an influencer is trying to push on a social media platform. Do yourself and do your body a favor and do the research. I wish I could have used our hour together to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more into the research itself. But believe me when I say that the research is worth exploring, and it's worth that little extra time to familiarize yourself with some of the options out there, and go into it with a more confident and more educated sense. And so if people wanted to connect with you or they wanted to try your products, how do they get in touch with you or your products, and or where do I send them?
Thank you. The easiest place is naturalcurelabs.com. In the spirit of compliance, our lawyers are strongly encouraging us to deviate from a name that has the word cure in it.
So, I wondered that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're actively in the process of rebranding all of our products, which is it's quite the effort, but I think it'll be worthwhile. Our new brand is called Palmara Health. Palmara is derived from a Roman word, palmarius, which means something or someone extraordinary. And it's the word is so that's Genesis is because a palm frond or a palm leaf was given to the victor of a competition. And so that's where the word comes from. So our brand is called Palmara Health, and you can find us under that website as well.
So is that Palmara?
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly, Palmara. And we also curiously make dietary supplements for pets as well. So during the pandemic, there was a rush to adopt puppies, and we wanted to sort of recognize that trend and extend our manufacturing and our supplement expertise to welcome those newest members of the family. So we have a brand of multivitamin soft chews for dogs under the brand name VitaTails. So those are the three brands, Natural Cure Labs.
Yeah,
Palmara
you've got a
Health,
lot going on.
VitaTails.
I'll make sure I put all of those links in the show notes too. So, you can just head there and click on those if you're wanting to find out a bit more. But Damon, I really appreciate your time today. It's been really interesting. I have learned, like in this conversation and our previous conversation, a lot of useful information. So I really thank you for your time and your expertise and that kind of educative approach that you take. It's really lovely.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you enjoyed it, if you would hit subscribe and the bell. That would be really helpful. Even more helpful actually would be to share it with someone else who you know has thyroid issues or you think would benefit from listening. That really is part of my mission, I suppose, is to spread the message of positive and practical approach to managing your thyroid health so that people really kind of have more energy to get on with living their life and not just kind of trudging through each day. So spreading that word really genuinely helps other people feel better, live better, be better. The best way that you can connect with me is through my website, which is annabellebateman.com. From there, really, you'll be able to connect in all the other ways. I would love it if you would join my Facebook community group. There's lots of great support there. It's all free. That's just being with like-minded people. But from the website, you can also book a strategy session with me. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, not too sure where to start, then book a strategy session. There's also freebies to download and links to look at my online courses or purchase some essential oils or my cookbook. So that's really the hub, would be annabellebateman.com. But look forward to connecting with you and just being in this thyroid health journey together. Have a great day. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.